Good afternoon and welcome to the Veteran Wellbeing Summit in what is week 2 of VWS 2020. My name is Jackie Vandervelde. I'm a director and board member of Wellbeing Australia and a member of the Veteran Wellbeing Summit Organising Committee. Wellbeing Australia, just a little bit of information, is a not-for-profit network bringing together people and organisations committed to developing healthy relationships that lead to individual and community wellbeing, with a particular emphasis on the areas of family, education and the workplace. Today we're going to be hearing from the team at Work Rehab, which is going to be a bit of a treat because Rebecca and I met each other in a completely different context, and then we had a different sort of training, and invited her to consider presenting, and she's going to be here today with her colleague Sue. But before we get started, we'd love you to interact with us today. Please, any questions, put those in the Q&A tab down the bottom. Of course, you've also got the chat function, so you can actually put messages in there as well. So we would love to get to those questions probably towards the end of our session today, but that shouldn't stop you from posting questions as and when you think of them. If we don't get to answer your questions today, we will get back to you on those. I'll liaise with the ladies to make sure that we get an answer and have those posted on the website when we've got the curated video up there as well. And today we ask that you share today's presentation and information with your social media networks using the hashtag VWS2020. So, to introduce our team today, as I said, we've got Rebecca Harnett. Rebecca has over a decade of experience assisting clients with psychological and physical workplace injuries, chronic illness, disabilities, and a return to their place of employment or to develop new career pathways. Rebecca is an awesome individual. We've had lots of fascinating and solution-focused discussions, which has been, can I just say, a breath of fresh air in this space. And that's we look forward to hearing more from her. And we're also joined by Sue Ellis, and Sue is a rehab manager and occupational nurse, and she's also the DVA account manager for Work Rehab. And she has worked extensively with ex-military clients, providing efficient case management and return to work services as well. So we welcome you too, Sue. So I'm going to turn my camera and audio off and hand over to you, and away you go, girls.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jackie. That was a really lovely introduction. Thanks for joining us, everybody. It's really great to be presenting here, and something that both Sue and I are very, very passionate about. So we're here today to have a chat to you about the rehabilitation process. So before we kick off, I just wanted to provide a bit of information about who we are. So Work Rehab is an occupational rehabilitation provider, and we service Queensland, New South Wales, ACT, SA, WA and Tas. We've been around for quite some time, and we're fairly well known in the industry, and our focus is really client-centric. So we like to provide a very holistic, outcome-focused approach across all of our jurisdictions, not just working with veterans in the DVA community, to achieve rehabilitation goals. We like to link in referrals with other organisations as well. So we like to work closely in the community and with other partnering service providers. We are a specialist rehabilitation provider and a preferred rehabilitation provider for ex-military personnel who are needing assistance to make that transition from military life into civilian life and work where that is appropriate.
Thank you. Yes, so depending on when you sustain your injury, and your injury is actually determined to be a compensable condition, you'll fall under 3 different rehabilitation acts under the Department of Veteran Affairs. The first one, the Military Rehab and Compensation Act, known as MRCA. Really the definition here is the rehabilitation program actually covers all medical management, psychosocial and vocational aspects of your rehabilitation plan. Whereas the Circa Act, there's more focus on the medical and the vocational side, albeit DVA does typically include psychosocial if your injury is sustained during the Circa time period. There's very much a whole person approach, whereas the Veterans Entitlement Act with injuries sort of sustained prior to that. So that typically tends to be sort of the veterans who are 50 years of age and plus would fall under that act there. So on the next one, we'll just look at the type of services. So how it typically works is that the Department of Veteran Affairs would refer you to us, normally as a result of you being medically discharged and a compensable condition. And there's this sort of expectation really that there's some look at the rehabilitation services that may be available to you, and just to identify if indeed they are appropriate. So some of the services that are typically requested by the Department of Veteran Affairs, and we're just one of many providers. We do tend to specialise in the veteran community, and we have staff coming to us purely because they want to work with veterans. But one of the main referral types is the initial rehabilitation assessment, and we'll go into what that really means in a little bit. There's another referral. There's a team of people that are typically based in Adelaide at the moment, referring for activities of daily living assessment and household assessment. They're the ones that look at your need for cleaning or assistance with shopping or gardening, and possibly even cooking assistance, etc., etc. There's also the Veterans Payment Assessment. This is a relatively new service. It was on the back of a 2016, a veteran passed away, and on the back of that, any veteran who puts in a mental health claim now is automatically referred to rehab to make sure that they have the support measures in place. So it's more based on ensuring the safety aspect, and there is support around there. So we treat those as a real priority. We've also got the Wellbeing and Support Programs. It was formerly known as WASP, and this initially started as a trial probably about 18 months ago now, and we were very fortunate to be invited to be part of this pilot. And again, they've got like a 3-tier approach, but what we have found in more recent months is that veterans who are quite complex and have multiple needs tend to fit quite nicely into this wellbeing and support program. And so whilst the DVA initial rehabilitation programs offers, amazing support, this WASP program, I should really call it Wellbeing and Support Program, is basically the initial rehab assessment, but on steroids. There's just sort of extra support there really for the immediate families, which again, work rehab, we've always involved the immediate family because typically they are the immediate support for the veteran. And so we always look after the partner and children as well. That's an absolute no-brainer. And I think it was, well, not because of that, but as Beck said, we're quite passionate about this space, and so so DVA are embracing that with some fabulous results. Then I got a bit carried away doing this slide, and I went and put the wrong name in. I went and put voluntary vocational rehab services. It's not at all that, it's called the Veteran Vocational Rehab Services. But what is that is a voluntary program, in the fact that there's no expectation that the veteran has to actually engage in a full rehab program. This particular assessment does actually include the medical management and the psychosocial services, but as I said, there's no mutual obligation to participate in rehab, and if the veteran chooses not to comply, benefits won't be suspended. And again, these typically are really only veterans who compensable conditions fall under the Veterans Entitlement Act. So that's the one that 1986. So these veterans are typically 50 years plus and just want some additional vocational support, such as extra job seeking, just check to see which other avenues they could possibly explore to extend their working life, kind of thing. So that's the type of services that we typically do. Thanks, Beck. Moving on nicely there. So the initial rehab assessment, it used to be called the INA, the initial needs assessment. It's now the initial rehab assessment. And that's most commonly completed to understand your needs and to identify your goals. Now, the whole intention of this is to understand your expectations and understand, when I say the veteran's goals. This is incredibly important because it's your rehab plan. And so the types of things we go through are, of course, sort of any compensable or non-compensable injuries or illnesses. And I should add, it's incredibly helpful when we do get medical reports from the department, because some of the injuries and illnesses that have been sustained, it's quite difficult for the veteran to go over. And so if we have those medical reports, not only does the veteran not have to go through the story, but we can be prepared and we can take the additional resources that we might find is going to be beneficial immediately. So we only ask the veteran to go over their story if they want to, and a lot of veterans actually do want their story to be heard again, but the focus really is on the here and now. So what are the current symptoms, what treatment are they currently receiving? And what we have found is that in the military environment, there are fabulous multidisciplinary teams, but in the civilian world there are teams that really specialise, and so in the civilian world, once they are under the care of the Department of Veteran Affairs, we can then refer them via their GP to like a specialist knee physio or a shoulder physio, so we could really focus on their real needs, which we'll give a couple of case examples later, which hopefully will make sense as well. So we do look at their current symptoms and needs, and as Beck said, we're all health professionals, so we do understand the mechanics of the body and the medications and the latest treatments that could be available. And so our role is to coordinate. We ourselves don't actually do hands-on treatment. We do motivational counselling, which some people would say that could be, you know, treatment, but it's more to help them identify their goals. So it's goal setting that we do, but we then coordinate their rehabilitation. It's incredibly important to look at the veteran support network. We know that a lot of veterans tend to go to remote places where perhaps there's not as much support available, and sometimes they're away from their families and their friends. So it's very important to identify who their support network is, and if they don't have any to hand, we will provide them with details such as open arms, etc., at that time. And the whole purpose here is to really establish what the veteran wants to achieve, and our role is to pull all this information together and just sort of come up with the veteran a plan that is realistic and tailored and measurable to do with what they want to achieve. And, you know, I might think, oh, you know, I think that they actually want to achieve X, Y, and Z, but really they just want to have a better relationship with their wife, or they want to be able to sleep better. And actually those things are incredibly important and they must be addressed. So it's the veterans' goals. It's also important to establish the financial situation because, you know, that can be a big barrier, or it can be a very motivating area too. But we need to establish, you know, if they are supported financially, that they're okay. If appropriate, we do, we typically go into vocational history prior to joining the military. Most people have actually had quite a participated in a few jobs before joining up, and also to really understand, you know, what their roles involved when they were serving as well. So that will come down track when they're ready to return to work. We can look at transferring some of those skills if they're still current and relevant. So that's what we do there. So it really is, that first meeting is really about getting just the rapport, just the understanding, and sometimes that meeting can go over 2 visits because there's just so much information to get, really. I think that's it for me. Beck?
Thanks, Sue. And yeah, we do typically split those initial assessments in most cases into 2 appointments, just because it is a lot of information, as Sue said, but we also take up that one step further and help you develop, or help the veteran develop, a rehabilitation plan. So we take those goals and those ideas that the veteran wants to achieve and help put some timeframes and parameters and some specificity around exactly what that is and how we're going to help them get there. So typically a plan is either a non-return to work plan where going back into the workforce is possibly not appropriate now or in the immediate future, or a return to work plan where there is that sort of end goal within approximately 12 months is sort of what we look at there. So within each of those plans, there are 3 main focuses. So the first is medical management. So that's where it's really important for us to know who your treatment providers are and what sort of treatment you're getting, the impact of your symptoms as well on your day-to-day life as a veteran. We generally attend things like medical case conferences with your GP to make sure that your medical certificate reflects the capacity that you have to participate first and foremost, but also any activities that you might want to do, which we'll have a chat about in a second, and any potential work options as well, that they're on board and they think that it's going to be medically appropriate for you as well. The psychosocial goals look at extra activities that you could do to help boost your social connection, your community connection, or even something to just generally get you engaged in something. And we have quite a wide range of things that we have helped veterans get involved in, from volunteer work through to some short online courses, surf lessons, guitar lessons, all those sorts of things that you might not typically think would be beneficial to a rehabilitation program, but at least helps create some sense of routine, some sense of belonging, community connection, all those good juicy things that help move people along. And the vocational goal obviously is in relation to that return to work plan. So that would typically involve a vocational assessment where we would go into more detail about your work history, what skills you would have gained from life as well as work, and see what's sort of transferable as well. As part of that sort of service, we also look at what RPL, or recognition of prior learning, might be available from the work that you've done whilst serving, and see sort of how that translates into alternate employment for you. And from there, we sort of put that all together with a bit of a career pathway that we obviously, like I said, discuss with your GP and any other treatment providers that are necessary, just to make sure that you're going to be well supported and we're setting you up for success in that career pathway. So with that plan, it is wholly and solely your goals and what you want to achieve and how you want to achieve that. When the plan does commence, we refer to necessary treatment providers. So you might be discharged without a GP or without a psychologist, so we will help implement that for you to make sure you've got the right level of support that you need. And like I said, we do liaise with those treatment providers with your permission and where appropriate, of course. We work together to identify those psychosocial goals, like I said, and obviously the vocational counselling and job seeking assistance once we do have that career pathway. So we have specialised employment consultants that will work with veterans very closely, as well as your rehabilitation consultant, and they will take you through everything from writing a resume and a cover letter through to interview skills and how to write applications and that anxiety build-up that you might get when starting a new job, how to relate to people in the workplace and all those sorts of things as well. So it's really quite a comprehensive level of support that we do tailor to each and every single person, depending on obviously where they're at and what their needs are. So the whole purpose of rehab is to support you to move towards the end of that rehabilitation plan. We do work with you and whoever is around you very closely within your support network, like I said, your treatment providers again, and we do hold regular meetings just to check in and make sure that those goals are still applicable, that they are moving forward. If there are any barriers, what are we going to work on together to move you forward to get where you need to be? We do communicate via phone, email, text message, whatever's going to work for you. Given the current climates, we have done a lot of video conferencing, which has been interesting for a lot of our veterans. New skills are being learnt, let's just say that. But it's all part of a learning process, and we do work with you, however is best going to suit you. We can assist with booking the appointments, attending appointments with you if you do need that kind of level of support. Sometimes it can be really quite daunting to meet with a new treatment provider. Even when you're looking at those psychosocial goals, it can be really quite daunting to meet with, say it's a language course, to go to those first few lessons and meet with that person, particularly if there are psychological symptoms, anxiety and things like that. It's good to have somebody that you have built some rapport and trust with, just to help you step through that initial process before you take it and run with it as your own. Obviously, like I said, we continue to review those goals with you throughout the entirety of your rehabilitation program, and we do provide regular reporting back to the DPA delegates on your progress, how it's going, anything else that's popped up, any new ideas or new goals or goal changes that happen along the way, as they do. So it's very much an open communication, a very transparent process, and we continue to work with you on that throughout. Moving into a few case studies now. So this one is Henry, and I worked with Henry for quite some time actually. So Henry had accepted compensable conditions for a lower back injury, both of his feet, and depression. So when he was first referred, he had no treatment providers. He'd been medically discharged, was residing in Port Macquarie, which didn't have a lot of resources, being a fairly regional area. So obviously, as part of that initial assessment and that rehabilitation phase, that planning phase, we obviously identified those particular issues. So we helped him link in with a good GP that had some sort of understanding of defence, which is always very helpful to have a treatment provider that has an understanding of what that life is like. That tends to be a bit of a bugbear and a bit of a barrier sometimes to our veterans. We helped him facilitate some referrals to some specialists to get further opinion regarding management of his conditions, referral to a psychologist so that he could start counselling and regain control of those depressive symptoms. In regards to his physical functioning, we helped him, under the guidance of his specialist and his GP, commence an exercise physiology program, so an exercise-based treatment program that was focused on helping him manage his chronic pain, understanding his barriers, and just gaining a better control and understanding overall of his body, the impacts of his condition, and how he could best manage that himself moving forward as well. Once he had finished that exercise physiologist program, he was provided a 3-month gym membership program as part of his psychosocial goal, and that was to enable him to continue those exercises and those learned things from the exercise physiologist independently. So it's about getting them linked in with the specialists where they need, building their skills to be independent and take some ownership back, regaining that sense of control, and helping support them through that transition process as well. Some of his additional psychosocial goals, Henry had a very, very large interest in gardening, hence the picture there. We helped him link in with his local community, like neighbourhood centre. They had a community garden that he became quite involved in. He also had a very strong interest in natural health. So Henry ended up planting a lot of natural herbs and things that were later used to make teas and all sorts of bits and pieces for himself and others around him. To this point, Henry now manages the community garden, organises other volunteers, and he's really enjoying continuing that process, which is really great to see. I still get little updates even though his rehab plan's well closed. In regards to learning more about his general health, so we did identify he had a very large interest in reflexology, particularly regarding his feet condition. So we did organise an online course that he could complete to get a bit of understanding of some self-practices that he could do to help him manage his condition ongoing as well. Over to you, Sue.
Yeah, thanks, Beck. So this is a case study of Tom. Tom was medically discharged from the army after serving 12 years working as a medic, and he had 2 medical conditions which were compensable, such as his right knee and post-traumatic stress. He identified his medical goals were to actually increase his mobility. He found that whilst he had a fairly good range of movement with his knee, he was sort of lacking the confidence of walking at pace, and certainly didn't feel he was able to run. So that was definitely a need there. What we did for that was we referred him, we found him a GP, and the GP referred him to a physio specialising in knees. And that physio actually identified that there would be a further benefit for a referral to a podiatrist because his foot alignment had shifted slightly. And that would further help correct that, and thereby increasing the confidence when mobilising as well. So that worked well. He was referred to an exercise physiologist for a special program to help build up the strength to help maintain those muscles, but also again the extra add-on there, the benefit was to increase the confidence there as well. He was provided with a 3-month gym and pool membership funded by the DVA, and whilst the DVA are amazing, I've got to remember that the veterans have got to be able to sort of keep this payment going on thereafter. So it needs to be able to be maintained by the veteran after sort of the rehab program. But he's certainly benefited from the gym membership and the pool membership. And where I sort of got involved was sort of liaising with each of these health providers to make sure that the condition was improving, that Tom was being good and attending his sessions and doing all his homework and being brilliantly compliant, which he was, and he was making great progress. His other medical goal, which is very typical with veterans with post-traumatic stress, or anyone with post-traumatic stress disorder. We don't really like that word disorder, we're trying to drop that D, but was sleep issues. And Tom had significant sleep issues, as do most veterans in my experience. But Tom, this was really impacting on his quality of life, and it was an absolute goal of his to improve this. So what we did was referred him to a psychologist to get extra support for his post-traumatic stress. He was pretty good at self-managing, actually. A lot of people typically tend to rely on either prescription medication or other substances such as alcohol. Tom was pretty good. He was drinking probably a little bit too much, but then when his sleep pattern improved, that decreased as well. We showed him the apps, the DVA recommended apps to help with sleep and alcohol intake and just those post-traumatic stress symptomology. Now, they're very good as well. There's also some wonderful mindfulness and just relaxation apps as well that we walked him through. What we have found in our experience is that whilst these apps are wonderful, it's best if they're practiced with someone. So sometimes in a follow-up session, we'll just check that they have downloaded their app and just walk them through, and maybe even just, start 5 minutes of a session. So just get them into that routine of actually using them. From a psychosocial point of view, Tom was single. He had really good mates, mainly veterans. He didn't really like civilians, which some of our veterans would, I'm sure, relate to. Unfortunately, his mates lived away, and whilst he was close to his sister, she and the family lived interstate. And like I said, he preferred to be around veterans. What we did, we engaged him with Mates for Mates and RSL, and we found a veterans motorbike club. There's lots of them and they're fabulous, and Tom especially loved his motorbike, and straight away his face just lit up. He had this a group of people. They're all veterans, they can relate to one another, but they were actually out in the community enjoying the environment and one another, which was just fabulous. And then that sort of progressed to other groups that they just let each other know about, which is brilliant. From a vocational point of view, Tom identified that obviously there was no way he could go back into the army and be a medic, but he really enjoyed being around people and wanted to continue to give back. But he was very focused on it. It was so important to identify an appropriate new role that would be meaningful, sustainable, and fulfilling. And that's what underlies all of our, anyone who's returning to work. We need to make sure it is absolutely appropriate, because whilst they might want to go and do something, they may just not have that physical or psychological ability at that time to do that. So we have to be realistic, and managing expectations doesn't mean they can't do it down track, but we just have to, get there slowly sometimes. But for Tom, it was quite easy actually. His RPL was still relevant, and so we arranged to have those certificates and diplomas change for him. We did lots of vocational counselling, and because of his knee issue and the aspect with working with people, you need to make sure that he has the physical function to do that, and more importantly, if he's going to do this type of work, it's not going to impact on his health as well. So we got his physio to actually do a functional assessment and provide that feedback. Where the client doesn't have a physio, we would actually undertake a functional assessment ourselves in line with the type of work we have identified to make sure that it's appropriate for Tom and his own health to pursue this chosen new career. He became a full-time first aid trainer, loved it, and is currently transferring over to the Queensland Ambulance Service. So that's Tom, and Beck and I could go on for a very long time. We've been working very closely with the veteran community for 9 years with Work Rehab now, and yes, we rather enjoy it. So, and I should, why not, as my sort of couple of hats that I wear, we're quite good at it. We've won lots of states and national awards, and we really do care. So it's great. And I think the last time...
That's better than workers' comp, but I didn't say that.
Less of the truth, you. Well, but you're absolutely right, Beck. Beck's in New South Wales. I'm off in the Sunshine Coast. I haven't seen her for a while. Is that, DVA is the most fabulous organisation. There is so much support there if you know where to look. With other workers' comp scheme, we have a very tight deadline, typically 4 or 6 or 12 weeks to turn this around. And quite a few schemes aren't able to look at the psychosocial aspects of a person's rehabilitation, whereas the Department of Veteran Affairs understands that this whole person approach very much means the medical management is massive initially, and of course that's the priority throughout, but there's so much other stuff. Let's get back in the community, let's get those family relations going, let's support the children to engage and understand as well. And then the last slide we'll go on to as well is, whilst DVA is able to offer a great deal, they can't do everything, and it's not appropriate for them to do everything either. There's some very clear guidelines, and that's where we then go over to lots of other ex-service organisations and other amazing community groups that we often link in with. Whilst we've put some logos up here, I'm seeing quite a few that I forgot to put on, so apologies for that. Please don't take offence, anyone. We work with lots of different organisations. I'll just start from the top there. Mates for Mates, as you all probably know, they come under RSL. There is another part to RSL. Amazing organisation. I work closely with the the Milton branch. They've got barbecues. COVID has been a little stifling for everyone, but there's incredible support. Open Arms, used to be VVCS, an amazing organisation, so much support. That's our sort of go-to for the 24-hour counselling service. They're amazing. They've also, I can't remember the time, but certainly in the last 12 months, I believe, they've now got sort of additional services such as peer support and complex case managers who deal and support veterans going through crisis. So fabulous organisation. What Defence Families of Australia there is because our military personnel are moving around very regularly, and believe it or not, a third of partners are actually in the health industry. So I was struggling a little bit with recruitment, and I thought, I think we should start tapping into some of the partners of our fine military establishments. So we've got a great relationship going now with Defence Partners, and we are hoping to employ a rehabilitation consultant in Cairns and Townsville. So if you know of anyone, they have to be good. Please let us know. And behind, I think it's Young Diggers behind my screen. I can't quite see. Yeah, thanks, Beck. They've got a scheme, Dogs for Diggers, as well. And I must admit, I haven't looked into them too much recently, but they are another good organisation. Legacy is just phenomenal. Love Legacy. There's lots of support there. It's not just for those who have supporting families of those who've passed away. They've really expanded. Soldier On, like Mates for Mates, they do fabulous retreats and support, not just for the veteran, but for the partners as well, and families. They do family retreats, they do equine therapy, they do the Coda track, as do Mates for Mates. Fabulous veterans supporting veterans. RSL, and again, amazing organisation, lots of support there. We work with them, we've done various pilots with them, and we're sort of assisting in the employment services side of things. The Bravery Trust is fabulous, especially assisting with funding of some things that perhaps DVA are unable outside of their legal parameters to actually do, such as putting dogs into respite if the client has to go into hospital, etc., etc. And sorry, just going back to the RSL, of course, there's the amazing advocates, and they too also have their own retreats and courses, as do, going back to Open Arms again, they have all this new training and even involving the partners to help them understand what post-traumatic stress is and how they can identify and support their loved ones. Maybe some ex-service organisations, the Men's Shed, really feel for them at the moment. They've had to sort of stop, get a meeting, but that's another fabulous organisation, and they're all over the place. They're brilliant. Kookaburra Kids is another fabulous one. We often recommend our families to look into their services. They support children of first line responders. They also have camps purely for, I believe, the military, but they do counselling, they do camps, weekends away, weeks away, another amazing organisation. And I could go on, but needless to say, we work as a team. We coordinate and we link in where we believe this client would get benefit from as well. So, any questions?
Yes, we have questions. Thank you so much. And can I just say that we are an offence-free zone in this summit, okay? We're all about bringing together people with stories and success, and quite a number of those organisations that you had up on your screen just then, so we've connected with through the summit already, that both last year and this year, and they're all doing amazing work. So it's good to see that we're able to probably bring together a few different groups in this space, and I know that from last year we've certainly got a lot more organisations working together rather than reinventing the wheel the whole time. So I do have some questions. So what if I just lead with these, and then we'll see how we go, and then you can put your hand up as to who's going to answer which one. First of all, we've got, hi guys, thank you for the information. Sue mentioned the various acts at the start of the presentation. VEA, she mentioned, is for over 50s. I'm 47 and have been under VEA since 28, being 28 as a TPI. What could you offer for veterans in his particular circumstances?
Oh, I don't know what the circumstances are, but he can certainly go to his sub-branch, have a chat to an advocate, and there may be some more claims he could put in, or maybe he needs some extra support with any of the type of rehabilitation services that Beck and I mentioned. The delegate is very well placed to refer him back into rehab, or he can phone DVA on the national number and just ask to have some additional services.
All right, so he's actually come back and said he is TPI already. So, so if there are some additional services, can they be referred to you directly, or do they need to go back? That person need to go back through DVA?
That's right, because we're just one of many great providers out there. So you can always request work rehab, and we'd be delighted to work with you. But there are a panel of providers who are very well placed to support. But you do have a say in who you work with. So if you have a particular provider you'd like to work with, you can ask that as well.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you. So Veterans Vocational Rehab Scheme, the VEA, isn't widely known even within DVA, is a comment. 2 years ago, there were 15 nationally in the scheme. Perhaps more emphasis on this would help those who are TPI to get back into the workforce.
Gosh, I'm surprised the number's that low, actually, because they actually had a team of 2 delegates, one in particular working solely in this space. So I'm surprised at that number. Probably that's for, well, yeah, it's possibly the RSL and the advocates can perhaps share that information. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, probably
outside our scope.
Yeah, probably outside of your scope, yeah. How do you deal with someone who is struggling and perhaps doesn't really want to be engaging in the process with you?
They're our favourite kind.
We've had these conversations.
Well, it really depends on the individual and the circumstances around why they don't want to engage. It may be a financially motivating factor, in that it might be more beneficial for them to remain on the whatever benefits they're currently receiving, which can happen. 9 times out of 10, it's very fear-based, fear of the unknown, fear of lack of control. So it's about having a real conversation with that particular individual about what is actually going on, what is stopping you from wanting to engage, what is it that you do want, where do you want to be in the future. So just having that very solution-focused, forward-thinking conversation about, you know, what's real right now, what can we work on, how can we actually engage you, what's going to push your buttons to light your fire.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just add in there as well, Beck, is that quite a few people, veterans or not, they're not particularly comfortable picking up the phone to a number that they don't recognise as well. So what we have found is that, you know, we'll send a text message just saying, you know, we're going to phone back. Is there a preferred time? And it's really just about understanding them, and perhaps mornings isn't a good time. And so, you know, we just get that rapport, we understand, and as Beck said earlier, sometimes a text message is the best way for some veterans, but of course we can't just communicate through text messages. But I do know that it's quite normal for that phone not to be answered initially until they recognise the number.
But you're persistent.
Yes.
Great.
Well, we have to be, because part of the referral to rehab is that, you know, there is an expectation that they will participate in rehabilitation. And as a provider, we are set key performance indicators that we actually make contact within 24 hours. We'll see someone within 7 days, etc., etc. So we have our own outcomes that we need to achieve. But of course, there's a very real person at the other end there, and because we typically only employ quite mature and experienced staff, that, you know, we understand how people tick and how best to engage them.
Excellent. We've got a question here, a comment and a question. So we've got someone from Legacy in Coffs Harbour. Lovely to have you with us today. Thank you for the wonderful work you are doing. We are doing a lot more work with young families, and this information is very important, a holistic approach. Will this presentation be available for me to share with our members? The answer to that is yes. Yes, it is. Obviously, the link, it's on demand after this session has finished. So the link that you use to register, you can give that information to your members. But also too, we will be putting the recorded version, curated version up on our website on all the W's, veteranwellbeingsummit.com.au. So it'll be there for anyone to view. So share that, please do share that on. Okay, so next question is we hear about rehab organisations. So this is obviously coming from VeteranNet, from the veteran community. Hear about rehab organisations really pushing veterans and setting unrealistic goals. The veteran misses an appointment and non-compliance reports go into DVA, and this causes more stress. It seems some only care about getting reports done and getting the money.
Unfortunately, that can happen. We do have requirements to report back to the DPA delegates that do make the referrals. So if an appointment is missed, we do report that, but we also, you know, try our best to make sure that there is no negative impact on the individual veteran. I don't know any consultant in work rehab that would go out of their way just to tick a box and to make it difficult or uncomfortable for any client, veteran or otherwise. You know, things happen, things come up, you're having a bad day, it's just all too much, that's fine. We just need to be able to communicate with you is the only thing I'd say. Even if it's a voicemail that you leave or a text message or an email, whatever. Our first point of call is to make sure A, you're okay, and then B, can we reschedule to a better time for you?
Thank you. Question here is, how confidential is your service? I'm concerned that information could be used against me in my career.
In your career?
Yeah, in my career, saying so. There obviously they must be still serving, I'm not sure. I'm concerned that information could be used against me in my career.
Not from work rehab. We don't disclose anything to an employer. We do provide training on injury disclosure. If there's a compensable or non-compensable injury or illness or condition that's going to impact on your ability to do any particular part of a job, there is a bit of a legal requirement to disclose what that is. And we do go through that particular training, but we don't disclose any of your private personal information at all to any employer. That's wholly and solely your choice, what you do choose to discuss with an employer.
Okay. And that training you're talking about, that's training with the client on how to actually...
Yeah. So our employment consultant deliver that as part of that sort of job seeking phase. Once we've got those vocational goals and that career pathway determined and all supported and everyone's on board, then yeah, we get the employment consultants involved, and that's their speciality, their forte. They go through all of that stuff, from resumes and cover letters all the way through to job seeking with the client, to placement, to work trials and work experience, and all of anything and everything in between.
Awesome, thank you. Well, we've got quite a few still. See if I can sort of group some of them together. Do you present at group meetings to advise on how a veterans group can set up a program? For example, if they're looking to set up, say, fishing or learning to snow ski or trekking, camping, etc., and other sorts of wellbeing programs, does work rehab offer that sort of service?
In terms of setting up like a fishing club, or?
Yeah, so I'd say, I think this is probably coming from an ESO. The question is coming from someone at an ESO. So do you present at group meetings to assist them with that sort of information?
Shall I answer that back? Because we've got like a database of good organisations out there, such as Men's Shed, such as the Veterans Motorbike, or the Vintage Cars and things like that. And there are some groups who have all wonderful intentions, but perhaps it's not a group that we would, as an organisation, recommend. So we do tend to do our due diligence, check them out, make sure it's it's appropriate for us to recommend these services. But we wouldn't actually set them up ourselves. Our role is to reach out into the community that the client is in. And what has been, a gift that's come out of COVID is all of the services virtually, which people can now access, especially from the remote side that perhaps we weren't perhaps accessing efficiently previously, whereas we've really embraced that now. So there's some fabulous online, I saw an online electronics course, which was brilliant the other day. So our thing is to link people in with their passions appropriately.
Okay. I think the question was more about, do you offer the service to actually assist these groups to get set up rather than recommending? So, but no, the answer to that is no. Okay, great. Thank you. You mentioned up on the slide, someone saying you had a dot point up there, motivational counselling. How does that work?
How does that work?
I think it's a short version.
Short version. I think our consultants are incredibly experienced, and we understand people. We understand, when they say what their goals are, and as health professionals and rehab consultants, we use motivational interviewing techniques to assist them to identify what it is they actually want to do. It's just the style of interviewing. It's just coaching in interviewing. It's just helping them think outside the box to achieve their goals. And sometimes those goals change, and that's okay. And that's where we then relook and develop a different plan if it's appropriate.
Oh, good. A question here. I've spent 20 years looking after my husband. We're now divorced. He is a veteran. Am I able to access work rehab?
You're not able to access work rehab. I'm also a veteran and someone of 20 years as well, ex-wife. I do get it, and I think that's why I've been particularly passionate about making sure immediate families and children are supported, because it's a no-brainer. But please reach out to Open Arms. They're fabulous, and yes, you can access that, and so can any children.
Okay, thank you. How do you think that professional mental health peer workers can help the veteran rehabilitation process, especially in the psychosocial recovery needs of veterans? There's
so much that they can do. It's fabulous, especially the mental health social workers, especially for, a lot of our veterans have been, were serving in the military for many, many years, and they haven't had to go shopping. They haven't had to clean a house. It's all been done for them. So there's a role for, it's endless, even just financial planning. There's just so much that is there. And that's where we sort of reach out to other organisations. There's another organisation, Smart Money. So, we have to, with the veteran payment referral, we need to make sure that the veteran is able to budget and understands that and is appropriately supported from the financial side of things.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so how are we going? We've still got a few more minutes yet. We've still got a few questions here. Do you find that veterans are burnt out from the DVA claims process before they're even referred to you?
Sometimes. Yeah, that definitely happens. But I guess it's our job to help them find the resources that they need to get themselves back on track and help support them through that whole process.
Yeah. Can I add as well, so you can tell I'm slightly passionate and I'm home alone, socially isolated. I've got a platform to talk and I'm going for it.
Go for it.
So what we're finding as well, and I'm just about to forget what I was going to say, is what we work with some other organisations. In fact, goodness me, I don't think we even had the Veterans Centre Sydney Northern Beaches logo up there. So we work with them, and they're sort of bridging the gap with the timely engagement, which which will be coming back, I'm sure, to the Department of Veteran Affairs. But of course, anyone who's put in a claim and is going through the medical discharge process. I used to work as a rehab consultant in ADF in Canberra, so I know that whole MEC review process and, you know, being transferred out. That can take many, many months. And so our role on the other side of that fence with Department of Veteran Affairs now is, as soon as someone is nearing that discharge date, is that we link up very, very quickly. So there is no delay. And so we've been working with some other organisations. I was RSL as well, indeed, a while back. But Veteran Centre Sydney Northern Beaches, we're working really closely with them. And we've picked up referrals that clients who have had very real needs and were picked up probably a couple of months later by DVA because of their own processes. But we were able to give that support prior to DVA able to pick them up. So, yeah, there's lots of ways to get in.
Excellent. I've got a question here. What is the best way for a veteran-focused psychosocial provider organisation to register with you to support the VVRS clients? Phone the 1300 number and make an appointment?
Email Sue.
Phone me.
Phone Sue. Okay,
so it together. I'm not too sure actually. I don't know if I am the appropriate person, but I can assist and put them on to the right person. Yeah.
Okay, great. So to that person who asked that question, when we, I will get back to you because I've got your contact details. I'll put you in contact with Sue so that you can have that conversation with her or get pointed in the right direction. Sue and Beck, how do you overcome trust issues?
It really depends on the individual and why there are trust issues. In my experience, I find that just being very real, very open, very honest, I tend to be sometimes a little bit too frank. It just helps to break those barriers down. Following through on what you say you're going to do is a really big thing I find initially with veterans, because, you know, sometimes people say they're going to do things and they don't. So when there are trust issues, I find that's really important to start building that rapport. And once that process is started, it generally happens pretty quickly that the trust issues dissolve between consultants and veterans. Would you add anything else to that, Sue?
Oh, there's just a few things going through my mind, and you know, as you said, Beck, it's so individualised there where that's come from, and I think it just comes as well with the consultant's maturity to be able to just reassure, and you know, it comes with time, as any new relationship, I think, and you know, we don't, you know, we have to earn it too. You know, it's our job to put that client at you know, peace. You know we can assist, but we need to demonstrate it, and that only comes with us delivering.
Good, all good points. A question here: carers and partners of veterans suffer a lot and go through a lot. What specific services do you offer for them?
Well, so I suppose it's important just to clarify that we are engaged typically by the Department of Veteran Affairs to look after the veteran. In so doing, if we identify that the partner on families would benefit from some additional support, we provide that information. If we are referred through the Wellbeing, formerly the WASP program, there are additional parameters. In fact, one of the initial resources, so when we go and meet with the veteran, there's something called a lifestyle indicator. So it's about their quality of life and how, you know, what's their sleep pattern on a 0 to 10 scale. But with the wellness side of the DVA program, there's also, the partner also completes a similar form, or they both complete the same form. It isn't called the LSI, it's called something else, but it's about their own life satisfaction indicators, and we can provide that additional support. I will add that, of course, primary focus is and must always be the veteran, but the immediate family are very much part of that veteran's care as well. So we need to provide that information. We're not there to provide them direct support. We are there to give them the support services that they can go to, the resources to tap into that. And we're always there at the end of the phone. Goodness, we have great rapport with all the families, and we are there, but we're not there to treat them. And that's a very important distinction in our role. We put them in touch with people who can provide that service. We coordinate it.
Okay, thank you. And look, we're just on the hour, but I think we've just got one last question if you ladies have time. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Under the plans helping the psychosocial recovery needs of veterans and or under the WASP program, has your organisation engaged professional mental health peer workers, that is those who are qualified with that certificate for mental health peer work in that rehab process?
I don't know if you have, Beck, have you?
No, not directly, no.
Okay, so I've worked with, and I don't know if Emma and Candice are online, but through the Open Arms in Queensland, Spring Hill, they're based. I've worked with them with their peer group, but haven't actually as yet referred. In fact, sorry, I do have a client who's under the care of the complex case management scheme there. But I know that the peer support team are relatively new, and I personally don't have any clients who are engaged, but it's going to be fabulous because it means, those veterans who struggle just to go out and have a cup of coffee, back in that civilian world again, go and do their shopping. And it's sometimes, their friends or family aren't close. And so you've got someone, typically, I believe they're all veterans themselves, will meet up with them and take them places. So it's brilliant. I personally haven't had anyone. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues have yet, but we will definitely be using them. It's brilliant.
Great. It's a great concept and program that they're prepping them for. I know there's been lots of training. Lots of training for them in these early stages. Ladies, that brings us sort of just past the hour. Can I say thank you again very much to Rebecca and Sue for your time today and for the discussion and taking so generously, taking all of those questions, some of them a little bit tricky, and I know that it was a little bit hard to answer them because we've got people obviously going through some tricky times. But thank you for taking those. Also, I've got some comments coming in. Thank you, great presentation, which is lovely to see. Thanks to everyone who joined us this afternoon. Please share with your networks the link that you use to sign up so that they can see the recording, and also look out for the other programs, webinars and workshops, etc., that we're going to be running for the rest of this week. I know it's only 2 more days, but the rest of this week, and look out for week 3 that is going to be in Veterans Health Week. But also too, we've got workshops coming up in July around solution-focused approaches to suicide prevention and solution-focused approaches to combat and operational stress recovery that we're making available. So again, on our website, have a look at those, and all our social media channels have got the links where you can register for those. So ladies from Work Rehab, Sue, Rebecca, thank you so much for your time today. It's been lovely having you with us.
Thank you, and thank you, Jackie, for this opportunity. And if I can help anyone, just point them in the right direction, I would love to do so. Just look for Work Rehab. My contact details are there. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, ladies. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Bye now.